Now what I'll do is I'll tell you how we can create the variables. What is the syntax for creating the variables? What is the syntax for putting the data in the variable? So in next couple of minutes in this video, I'm going to explain you what is the syntax for creating the variable, what is the syntax for putting data into the variable. So let's start with syntax for creating a variable. Syntax for creating a variable is very easy. It's super easy. So let's quickly see what is the syntax. So at first you have to write data type keyword. Okay. Now in the previous video in which we have discussed about keywords, in that video we have seen list of keywords available in C++, and I have also told you few keywords, or I guess all the keywords of primitive data type, and we have seen what is the keyword for integer data type, what is the keyword for float data type. So we have seen list of keywords for the primitive data type. I hope you remember those keywords. So depending on what type of data you want to store, let's say you want to store some integer constant, if you want to store some character constant, depending on type of data that you want to store, you have to write keyword of that data type. So let's say you want to store some integer value, then in that case you will have to write keyword that is going to be int, because int is the keyword for integer data type. This is something that we have seen in the previous video. So this is the first thing that you will have to write. Then after writing data type keyword, what you have to do is you have to write name of the variable. See, whenever we create a variable, for each and every variable you will have to give some name. Now why we need to give name to the variable? See, whenever we create a variable, compiler or C++ is going to allocate some memory for our variable. Now in order to identify that memory, or in order to reach that memory, we need to assign some name to it. So again, let's go back to our kitchen. So in our kitchen we have different containers. We have containers for storing rice, we have containers for storing different things. So what we usually do is, in order to recognize what thing is present in which container, what we do is we kind of have some name tag on top of that container. So usually whenever we have some container, and in that container let's say we have rice, then we paste one name on top of that container so that we can quickly identify that, okay, in this container rice is present. So similarly, whenever you are creating variable, you will have to give name to that variable so that we can easily reach to that variable, because it's going to be present in the memory and we need to identify our variable. That's why we need to have name to our variable. Now there are few rules when it comes to naming a variable. This is very important. See, you cannot give any random name to the variable. There are few rules that you need to follow. So let's quickly discuss about the rules that you need to follow when creating a variable. So I have listed 3 rules over here. So you have to follow these 3 rules in order to create a variable name. So let's start with the first rule. First rule says that variable name cannot be a keyword. So in the previous video we have seen list of keywords. So you cannot give variable name from that list. So let's say int is a keyword, so your variable name cannot be int, small int, because small int is a keyword. So this is the rule number 1. Variable name cannot be a keyword. Very simple rule, right? Second rule says that variable name can be constructed by combination of these characters, or these set of characters. So your variable name can have small a to small z character. It can also have capital A to capital Z character. It can also have 0 to 9 digits, and it can also have underscore. So you can construct your variable name by combination of these characters: small a to small z, capital A to capital Z, 0 to 9 digits, and underscore special character. The last rule is very important. The last rule says that variable name cannot start with digit. Okay, so you can have variable name with any combination of above characters, but it cannot start with digit. So I'll just give you some examples. So now what we'll do is we'll just list down few variable name, and we'll just identify out of the variable name which I am going to list on the screen, which of them are correct and which of them are not correct according to these 3 rules. So let me quickly write few random variable names over here, and then we'll identify which one of them are correct and which one of them are not correct. So let me just start writing few variable name. So the first variable name that I'm going to write is capital I small n t. Let me write few names, okay? Char, let's say one char, let's say underscore underscore 234, let's say underscore 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 small a capital A B 10, let's say star 123. Okay, cool. So I think this list is enough. So now let's try to identify which variable names among these are not valid. So let's identify invalid variable name. Let's start with the first one. Whether this capital I small nt is a valid variable name. So yes, it is a valid variable name. So let's scan through all these three rules whether it satisfies all these three rules or not. So let's start with the first rule. Whether this is a keyword. See, small int is a keyword, but capital I small nt is not a keyword. Always remember, C++ is a case sensitive programming language. So this int and this int is different. Over here we have capital I, over here we have small I. So that's why this int is not a keyword. Whether it is made from these combinations or whether it contains character from this set of characters, so answer is yes. It contains characters from this or the permissible set only. So it also satisfies rule number 2. Now let's see whether it contains a digit or whether it starts with digit. This is rule number 3. So it is not starting with digit. So this is a valid variable name. Let's check whether the second variable name, whether it is valid variable name or not. See, the name of variable that we have written over here is char, small char. Now small char is a reserved word in C++. It's a keyword in C++, so it doesn't satisfy rule number 1. So that's why it is not a valid variable name. Now let's see whether this third variable name is a valid variable name or not. See, this variable name starts with a digit. So that's why this is not a valid variable name. It doesn't satisfy rule number 3. Let's see whether the variable name 4 is valid or not. So you can see it satisfies rule number 1. It satisfies rule number 2 because it contains all the characters from the permissible set of characters, okay, which is this set. Then it doesn't start with digits. So that's why this is a valid variable name. Let's see whether this is valid variable or not, which contains 3 underscore, whether this is a valid variable name or not. So you can see even this is a valid variable name because it satisfies all these 3 rules. See, even this is a valid variable name because it satisfies all these 3 rules. It doesn't start with digit, it is not a keyword, and it contains all the characters from this set. And let's check the last variable name, star 123, whether this is a valid variable name or not. See, this is not a valid variable name because it doesn't satisfy rule number 2. It contains star in the variable name and star is not allowed. It's not a valid character for creating a variable name. That's why the last variable name is not a valid variable name. So I hope now you have got a clear idea about how we can construct a variable name by using these 3 rules. Always remember, you have to follow these 3 rules in order to create a variable name. If you don't follow these 3 rules, then the C++ won't be able to identify, or the C++ might give you some errors. It can say that your variable name is not valid according to my rules, or it can get confused sometimes. So that's why it's always important to follow these 3 rules. So now let's complete our syntax. So we started with the data type. So we have written int. Now let me just clear this board so that I'll get some space on the right hand side. Okay, so after writing data type, you have to write name of the variable, and we have seen what are the rules for creating name of the variable. So let me give one name for the first variable. So I'll name it as first var. I'll write first underscore var. And after this, you have to give semicolon. So this is very important. This is part of the syntax. So what is the variable name that we are creating? The name of the variable is first underscore var. This is a valid variable name as per these 3 rules, right? What is the data type? The data type is int. So yes, I mean, this is the first variable that we have created. It's of type integer and its name is first var. Now let's understand what is going to happen whenever we create a variable. So whenever we create a variable, what C++ is going to do is, C++ is going to allocate some memory for our variable. In the next video, I'm going to tell you what is the precise amount or what is the precise number of the memory that our variable is going to get. But right now just understand, or right now just remember that whenever you are creating a variable, C++ is going to allocate some memory for your variable, and for that memory it is going to have this tag. So for this memory it's going to have this names. The name is first underscore var. So it's very simple. You are creating a variable, then you are getting some memory assigned for your variable, and for that memory this name is getting attached, so that by this name you can reach to that memory. It's as simple as that. Now let's understand. See, we have created the variable, but we haven't added any value to that variable. We haven't stored any data in this variable. So now let's understand how we can store the data into the variable, how we can assign some value into the variable. Let's see what is the syntax for that. So for that, let me just clear this whiteboard and I'll explain you what is the syntax for storing data into the variable. Okay, so let me just clear the whiteboard. Okay, now let me create few more variables before telling you what is the syntax for initializing the variable. See, whenever we have to store data into the variable for the first time, or whenever we have to store data into the variable, whenever we create them, this process is called as initialization of the variable. I'll get back to this initialization. Right now what we'll do is we'll create few more variables. Let's say I want to create variable of character type. How I'll create it? I'll write char, which is keyword for character data type, and then I'll write variable name. Let me write name as cvar. Let's say I want to create variable for double data type. How I'll do it? I'll write double and then I'll write name of the variable. Let's say dvar. Let's say I want to create variable for boolean data type. What I'll do is I'll write bool, which is keyword for boolean data type. See, keyword for boolean data type is not boolean, it's B-double-O-L, bool. Okay, and I'll write name of the variable. I'll write, let's say, bvar. So I hope now you have understood the syntax for creating a variable for different data types. Now let's understand what is the syntax for initializing the variable. What is an initialization? Whenever you are creating a variable, if in the same line, if in the same syntax, if you give value to the variable, if you assign some value to the variable, then it is called as initialization. So let's initialize this variable, which is first var. So in order to initialize this variable, let me write it again. So what I'll do is I'll write int, which is data type keyword, then I'll write name of the variable. So name of the variable is first underscore var. So I'll write it over here. Now what you have to do is, let's say you want to assign 10 value to this variable. You want to put 10 value to this variable. So what you have to do is, you have to write equal to, this is equal to symbol, and then you have to write the value. So in this case the value is 10, and after this value you have to write semicolon. So this thing is called as initialization. Okay, so what we are doing, we are initializing the variable. We are putting some initial value into the variable. This is called as initialization. What is the syntax? You have to write data type, then you have to write variable name, then you have to write equal to, and then you have to write the value. So now whenever you write something like this, what is going to happen? The compiler or C++ is going to create a variable for you. It's going to allocate some memory for your variable, and then in that memory it's going to store your value. In this case we are storing 10, so in this memory 10 is going to be stored. Okay, so whatever value you are giving in the initialization, that value is going to be stored in the variable. As simple as that. Now I hope you are clear with this concept. Let's say you want to create a boolean variable and you want to initialize it as well. So how you will do it? So what you will have to do is, you have to write bool variable name, which is, let's say, bvar in this case, and then you have to give it some value. So let's say I want to initialize this boolean variable with, let's say, value as true. So whenever you are writing bool bvar is equal to true, what is going to happen? C++ is going to create a variable for you. It's going to allocate memory for your variable. It's going to give name to that memory. So in this case the name is b_var, and then it's going to put this value in that variable. So it's going to put true in that variable. So this is the common process which is going to be followed for each and every type of variable. Doesn't matter what type of variable it is. for each and every type of variable, the same process is going to be followed. The variable is going to be created, memory is allocated for your variable, then it's going to be associated with some name, whatever name you are giving to your variable, and then the data is going to be inserted in the variable, and this process is called as initialization. Now let's say after initializing your variable, let me just clear the board again. See, after initializing the variable, let's say you think of changing the value. So let's say you have 10 value right now in first var. After some point of time you thought that I want 20 in the first var now instead of 10. What can be done? So what we can do is we can change the value of the variable anytime we want. So the syntax for changing the value after initializing the variable is very simple. What you have to do is you just have to write name of the variable. So in this case, name of the variable is first var. So I'll write first underscore var, and then whatever value, whatever new value you want to give, you have to write equal to, and then you have to write new value in front of it followed by semicolon. So now whenever you write something like this, what is going to happen? See, by scanning the first line, the compiler is going to create a variable that is first var, and then it's going to assign 10 value in that variable, and we call this as initialization. Now after some point of time, you are writing this line. See, whenever we will go to our Visual Studio Code and whenever we will write actual code, at that time you will get more idea. Right now we are just discussing from theoretical perspective. So even if you are missing on some concepts, or even if some concepts are looking like difficult to you, don't worry about them, because in the Visual Studio Code you will be more comfortable about all these concepts. So don't worry at all. Whenever you write something like this, like first underscore y is equal to 20, what is going to happen? The old value will be replaced with the new value. So the old value will be erased and the new value will be added over here. So now the value in the first var is going to be 20 instead of 10. And this process is called as assignment. Okay. What is difference between assignment and initialization? Initialization happens at the time of variable creation. See, this is the time of variable creation. This is the time when variable is getting constructed, the memory is getting allocated for your variable. So at that time, whenever you assign a value to the variable, it is called as initialization. But after your variable is created, once you have this box or the container in the memory, after that, if you want to change the value of that variable, then you can do it using this syntax, and this thing is called as assignment. So there is a difference between initialization and assignment. See, this is a common question that is asked in the interviews. What is difference between initialization of the variable and assignment of the variable? So this is the difference. Initialization happens at the time of creating a variable, whereas assignment happens when the variable is created, or I'll say after the variable is created. See, always remember, at the time of initialization, you just have to write name of the variable followed by equal to followed by the new value. You don't have to write this data type again. This is very important. Sometimes students mistaken this. Sometimes students at the time of assignment also they write int first var is equal to 20. It's not allowed. It's not a valid syntax. So at the time of assignment, you just have to write variable name followed by equal to followed by the new value. So I hope now you are clear on the syntax of how we can create a variable, how we can initialize the variable, and how we can assign a new value into the variable. I think it was very easy. It's a super easy syntax.